This series is close to my heart. It's a big part of my story of connections, social connections, relationships. And of course, we know that we're created out of relationship for relationship. In Genesis, we see in the book, the Lord says, let us, plural, it's the Trinity, make man, all of us, in our image for relationship. So it's no surprise to me that there's this deep yearning in our souls. It's how we're wired. We really want to be seen like God sees us. We really want to be heard, really heard. And when we're seen and heard, it expresses this value like, maybe I do matter. So the real question is, if we're wired for it, if we all want it, why does it seem so hard? Why is it such a struggle? Because when you look at the statistics globally, this is not just the States, this is not just the Western world, this is global, that 31% of the world says they regularly feel alone, this felt sense of loneliness. And when you look at the generations, this is the scary part to me, because what I've seen happening in the last 20, 25 years is this social erosion that's happening, where if it's kind of this way, people, if we don't use it, we lose it. And if we don't practice relating, there starts to be an unraveling. And if you look at it generationally, and you look at which generation feels the pronounced sense of aloneness, it's our young people. It's incredible. It's frightening. And I think, man, we're in a season where it's so important. The church has a historic opportunity. And it's really pretty simple. If we, the church, just get really good at seeing people and pretty good at hearing them, we could make a significant impact in the trajectory of the world, really. But in order to do that, to step into deeper connections, it feels a little scary. It feels a little bit like this. Watch this movie. Now, maybe it's not that bad. But can you identify, like, this idea of moving towards connection, when it comes to asking that person if they want coffee, asking that person if they want to go for a walk, you want to just hang out a little bit, there's this feeling of risk, isn't there? And you wonder, like, what will happen to me if I step into this? It feels crowded. You're not so sure how they're going to respond. You're not so sure how you're going to respond. And this connection thing starts to get a little bit more complex. I've told you this story. Bear with me. Some may not have heard it, but when I was a little guy, I had a friend. and I'm still looking for him. His name is John Gallo. And John was, as I remember, he was the nicest friend that I can remember. He just was a really nice kid. And I got to know his family from a distance. And we'd be playing down by the creek, and then his mom would call, "John, it's time for dinner." And he lived across the field and down the street. And so John would take off, and then I would go 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, and I would take off. Because what I would do is I would wait till John would go in, but then I would slide under John Gallo's porch. And above me is where his family had dinner. And it sounded like heaven, man. His dad had this really deep FM radio voice. Kind of like what you would imagine God, you know. And you'd hear this boom through there, and they would pray, and then they would go around the table, and each kid, they had a big Italian Catholic family, and they'd go around, and each kid would share about their day. And I would just listen with awe at the connection, at family. And it just would work in my heart. But here's the deal. If I'd have been found out, if someone would have, if John would have whispered to his dad, "Actually, my friend Mark Spencer's down below," and they would have come for me, I don't know what I'd have done. Because I don't know if I could fit up there. I don't know if I could really, make the marks, to fit in with that group of heavenly people. It just seemed beyond me. But yet I craved it so much. And so today what I want to talk to you about is the big jump. There's a big jump. And let me explain this a little bit more. There are 4 spaces that all of our life is expressed in. 4 spaces that you and I experience throughout life. The first space is this public space. And it's a space of 75 or more people. And today, if you wore purple and you went down to that big stadium and you painted some purple things on your face and you cheered for the team that had purple jerseys on, you would have a public experience. It would be a shared experience. And when the Vikings score and you went, "Yeah!" to the person next to you, you would have a shared experience. But it really wouldn't satisfy the deepest parts of your heart. But it would still be a social experience, wouldn't it? You would still feel connected to something, a part of something, but there's thousands of other people in that building. And then, so life can move it to smaller venues, like a social setting, which helps our heart a little bit more. This is like a classroom, 30 or more people, and you could be, like if these were individual classes and sections, you would sit there, and if Grant and Brendan regularly sat in class together, eventually they might get to know each other a little bit more. And they would have a shared experience, and they would say, "Doesn't Mark Spencer ask hard questions on his tests?" And I would go, "Ha, ha, ha, ha." But that experience, it's shared. You might get some connection out of that, but it doesn't fully satisfy our heart. We still find ourselves longing for something deeper, something more, places where we're really seen for who we are, and we're really known for who we are. And this is where the big jump happens. Because to get to this personal space, it takes a leap. It takes a leap of risk and faith for you to jump into this personal space, which would be like Jesus and the 12. These are people who really get to know you. They know where you live. They might come over for coffee. If you have a flat tire and you need help, you call them. These are personal, close friends who are getting to know you. They see you, they hear you. And that satisfies our heart in deeper ways. But the place that we really long for, the place that's really going to fill our heart, is this intimate space, this space where it's Jesus and the 3. These are your besties. These are the people that will call you. Like if they don't see you at church, they call you. They go, "Grant, where are you?" And Grant says, "Man, I'm studying for a biology test." "Okay, that's fine. It's okay. But I'm checking on him." because I know him, and he's in that intimate space. But in order to get down to those personal and intimate spaces, you have to risk being known. You got to risk that. I can't make that. The church can invite you into the public space. The church can invite you into the social space. But the church can't make you step into the personal and the intimate. You have to jump. You have to say, I want to be known. And why is that so challenging? Here's why. We all face a common enemy: shame. Shame is the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we're flawed, that there's something innately wrong with Mark Spencer. It's bigger. That people will say, well, fear of rejection, isn't that a big deal, Mark? Yeah, but fear of rejection is a servant to shame. Shame is the big deal. If you get rejected, you could maybe dust yourself off and go, okay, I'm going to pick up and go, but shame haunts you. It follows you around. No one's that interested in you. No one wants to really hang out. No one wants to hear that. No one sees you. And when Dr. Brene Brown started researching, she's a social worker, and she wanted to find out, how do we help people connect? She actually started looking towards connection in her research. And what she discovered is, when she asked people about belonging or connecting or being a part, what they would do is, instead of talking about great connections, they would talk about places where they were excluded, ostracized, put away, and shamed. And it only took about 6 weeks before this great researcher said, what's going on? Every time I ask the same question, tell me stories of connection, people wander down the street where what they're telling me about is places where they weren't loved, they weren't accepted. And she realized, wow, we've got to dig into this idea of shame, because that's the thing that keeps us from deeper connections. John Ortberg says it this way. He says, you can only love and be loved to the extent that you know and are known by somebody. Let me read it again, because it's packed. You can only love and be loved to the extent that you know and are known by somebody. Because here's the deal. If you're in a relationship with someone and you're not, you stop short, you say, well, listen, man, if Steve knows that about me, then it's probably going to kill our friendship. He's probably going to be like, wow, you did that, or you think that, or you want that. And yet in our heart, we are longing for, I want someone to really see me and know me, all of me. And it takes, in each space, the public, in the social, in the personal, in the intimate, it will require us, wherever we are, to take a jump. And when we do, this is the beautiful, empowering thing. People catch it. So I was in a public space called Costco. And I'm here to testify that there are zombies. And they're at Costco. Have you noticed that? You know, it's like everyone forgets that we're driving in America. They're driving all over with their carts. They're like, you're dodging carts and everything. So I have like my secret route, and I know just how I'm going to get through the Maplewood Costco. And then I get my stuff, and I go up to the grocery store line, the register line, and there's this cute family that's coming. They just got a few things in their cart. I don't know why they would go in there with 2 young boys and just buy a few things. I mean, you're risking life and limb. And these are really cute guys, and they hit the sample things. They're eating chips, you know. And one guy is about 5 years old, and I got 5-year-old granddaughters, and you know, I love that age, right around 5. And I said, hey, how are the chips? He goes, oh, they're great. And I said, yeah, and they were free, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm going to save some for dinner. Why? I said, wow, that's a great idea. And then he looked at me, I had shorts on. He goes, why are you wearing shorts? He was one of those kids. He just asked questions. I said, because I was working in the garden, and I came here, and it's hot. And then he looks at me and he goes, what happened to your hair? And immediately I said, I've been asking myself that question for years. And the two lines all around, everybody, I'm along Costco, they're all laughing. So then I thought, well, I got an audience. So I said, let me tell you a story about another kid that asked me a funny question. This is my granddaughter, Hannah, was 2.5. I'm reading her a story, sitting on the couch, and she's sitting here. And so she's looking up at the book, but as she looks at the book, she's also looking up my nose. And she keeps looking at the book and then looking up at my nose, and looking at the book and looking up at my nose. And then she asks this really incredible question for a 2.5-year-old. She goes, Grandpa, how come you can grow hair on your nose but not on your head? Man, if you want to be connected, you got to risk being known. Right? It's all right there. Wow. But it does feel a little scary to say, okay, I'm gonna jump. And it's scary because we all look different. We all look different. We're all different, you know. And you know, I look at you and you look at me, and we're different from different places. And I might be old and you might be young, and you know, we each make our own funny sounds, and we each like our own weird food. And then you look at each other and you don't know. You don't know, like, will they like me or will I like them? You know, and you have all this unknown that you run into, and you're kind of staring. Could we possibly be friends? Could we possibly connect? Is it possible? So you realize in this that there's me and there's you, and then right in between are these big unknowns. I don't know how this is going to work. And it can feel like a massive jump, even in the greeting time, to walk across and go, you know, I'm not quite sure that we've met before. And then when you're old like me and you're losing your memory, they go, oh yeah, we talked last week. Oh, forgive me. Now, if you're going to jump this, if you're going to cross through the valley of the unknown to really connect, if you're going to take this series to heart, if you're going to really try to live out what is, I think, a core piece of the gospel, come follow me and I'll teach you how to fish for people. We'll get to that. Wouldn't it be helpful that along the way, the journey of through the unknown, that if you had someone, a guide who knows everything, someone who never changes, someone who says, I'll always be with you no matter what. I'm always going to love you. I'm always going to care for you. And there isn't anything I don't know. Do you know anybody like that? Right, God. The God who says, I'm always with you. But we know that. We talk about it all the time. How does that help me get through the valley of unknown and, most importantly, step past shame? That's what I want to help you to understand a little bit. And we're just really going to tap into one verse. It's actually half of a verse. You've heard me talk about it before, but we're going to unpack it today. The only thing that counts is faith, expressing itself through love. The Apostle Paul, the only thing that counts. It's the only thing. You can tear it apart, you can turn it upside down in the Greek, and it says literally the only thing, the single thing, uno, is your faith expressing itself through love. And here's what I would say, after 42 years of helping people relationally, marriages, families, church staffs, people on the street, I would say that, and this is not an exaggeration, you guys, well over 90% of the relational struggles I see are not a love struggle, they're a faith struggle. It's not a love struggle. It's their faith. It's their faith. Well, faith in what? Well, let me tell you. You see, when we're facing the unknowns, when we're going to risk going ahead and putting ourselves out there, what we're really concerned about is the big moi. If I risk me over to you, what are you going to do to me? Will I survive it? Will I like it? Will it be good? Will it be bad? Will I be laughed at? Will I be scoffed? Am I going to be crushed? Will I be all right? Who will care for me? That's why it's a faith question. Who takes care of me? And so the first thing you really want to lean your faith on is the understanding of whose you are. The big question isn't who you are, it's whose you are. If I walk across the room and I risk being known, if I tell you stories about my granddaughter looking up my nose, who's going to hold me? Who's going to take care of me when I risk giving myself to you? And God wants to make clear to us, you are mine. Jesus says it this way. John talks about this. He said, yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave them right to become children of God, children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. Do you realize this? You are all sitting here. You're all here. You're on this planet, and you had nothing to do with it. Let that sink in. You had nothing to do with it. God, Mom, and Dad took care of that. And you just came in going, well. So Jesus goes on and he explains, he says, listen, I want you to know you did not choose me. I chose you. I made you. I called you. I died for you. I picked you. You're mine. And when you're battling shame and rejection, start there. Start with whose you are. Nothing, Romans 8, nothing by any means shall separate you from the love of Christ. Nothing. There's a whole long list. And you need to dwell on these truths. You need to stand in these truths. You need to preach these truths to you. You are God's. His. Forever. We're doing communion today, and every time I look at communion, no kidding, I remember John Gallo didn't come get me, but Jesus did. He came looking for me. He came looking for you. And in order for you to lean on whose you are, you need to realize who he is. Your faith has to rest on that, because sometimes we struggle. God, where are you? God, this relationship just went south. What are you doing? Why aren't you doing something? And we need to nurture and foster our faith. We need to watch for what God is doing. In one of the incredible stories in Genesis, I mean, you talk about weird stories of disconnection. There's Hagar gets dragged into this family thing and is a surrogate mom for Sarah. Has a son, Ishmael. And as a result, there's a severe disconnect between Sarah and Hagar. She wants to send her away, which in those days, that means sending you out into the wilderness with no food, no shelter, no water, no nothing. In other words, it's a death sentence. And when she's in this crisis point, when it seems like, God, where are you? What are you doing? I didn't want this. I simply had to do this. Here I am. I'm in a mess. I'm stuck. I feel so disconnected. God speaks to her heart. And her response back is, "You are the God who sees me." And out of that deep faith encounter, she has enough courage and grit and faith to turn around and step back into that relationship, because there is a God who sees her. And that God who sees her and you and I is faithful. When he calls to us, he'll also bring it to pass. And when Jesus comes, he comes calling to us. He says, "Listen, I want you to come with me. I will show you how to do this relational thing." And it's all based on the unshakable guarantee that he will never leave us. He will never forsake us. And we will have an experience that in those moments where we feel shaky and unsure relationally, or what do I do, or what do I say, or how do I respond, every moment that you jump, the God who sees you is with you. And that is what moves us past moments of shame. And they come in all kinds of places. I'm working with a church right now, and there was a former pastor there that I really needed to talk to get a history and story about what's going on with these two staff members, and I'm trying to help them reconcile. And you know what? When I got ready to call the guy, every time I got ready to call the guy, I got nervous. I got shy. I thought, oh, he doesn't know me. He's going to think I'm nuts. You know, and all these different thoughts. He's not going to want to talk to me. And then finally the light went on. Thank God for the Spirit of God. The light went on. It's like, oh, I'm talking about shame. Oh, I'm experiencing shame right now. God help me. This is ridiculous. Picked up the phone and had a fabulous conversation. A really helpful conversation. But I needed to remember the God who sees me is with me. These things that we read, we're not trusting our own imagination or some wish list. We're trusting the almighty truth-telling, the God who cannot or ever lied. We're trusting him. And he says, I am with you always, always. And this God who is with us wants to teach us how to relate, how to reach, how to fish for people, how to connect. And so maybe it's a doable jump with God. So let me close with just some very practical things to think about. Can I? Are you with me? All right. Remember those 4 spaces that we talked about. You can arrange them in this way, where they're like a triangle. The public space is the widest space, widest number of people. But there's not a depth of knowledge at that level. There's just, oh, you're a Viking fan, I'm a Vikings fan. That's not deep knowledge. That's not a lot of personal risk. But if you want to get down to a more connected, personal, intimate space, that means risking. That means investing. And so you see in Jesus' life how he did this. How to the multitudes, he would talk and share, and he would minister, and he cared. But he's not deeply connected to all those multitudes. He'd see them one day and gone the next. The 72, a little bit more of a connection, but the 12 and the 3, very, very connected to these people, very, very known. And so for you and I, it's the same kind of experience where right now you might look around this room and say most of these people are just acquaintances. And if that's where you're at, that's okay. Foster some connection at that level. Say hi. Engage. Look at them. Talk with them. Kind of like when I saw the 5-year-old and engaged him. I didn't know that it was going to be a comedic moment, but voila, it was. And each of these layers, there are boundaries that happen. I mean, people who I'm an acquaintance with, I'm not telling my deepest concerns to. I'm not sharing my deepest needs with those people. I'm fostering down the line, and there's a narrower group of people, just like with Jesus, the 12 and the 3. You will not be deeply connected to 70 people. It's impossible for us. We can't hold it. We can't do it. Our hearts just can't foster it. We don't have enough time and energy to connect at that level. But 3 to 5, we could become very close friends with. But here's the thing I want you to realize is that it's a process. Dr. Jeffrey Hall at the University of Kansas has studied relational development. And get this, there's a consistent pattern. It takes about 50 hours of shared time for you to transition from an acquaintance to a casual friend. 50 hours of invested time. Now you may go, wow, that's more than a full-time week. Is it really worth it? Yes, it is, because some of the fears that you have of, are we going to connect? What would the connection look like? Get processed in those 50 hours. If there's a person that you realize, I don't know, it doesn't seem like there's a connection fostering here, they stay in an acquaintance category. That's okay. But your heart is still looking for deeper connection. And so Dr. Hall says, you're going to take another 90 hours to get down to the place where you are a friend, a close friend. And it takes over 200 hours to develop that intimate friendship. I was 25 years old. I was newly married. I was a recovering addict. Jesus had radically saved me. I mean, I knew when I prayed that prayer, I felt like God was right here. And I said aloud, my first words to that God were, wow, this is the Father I've been looking for all my life. I was very fortunate to have that kind of a connection. And I needed it because you know what? The reason that I was an addict, the reason that I pretended and lied, was I was scared to death of being known. So I would get drunk, I would get high, or both, because then that's my throwaway self. That wasn't really me, that was just my party me. Who cares? But now I'm a Christian. I remember shocking the guy that led me to the Lord. We were sitting at the cafe, and I said, you know, I was thinking I probably should stop lying. And he kind of looked at me. And I said, lying's probably not a good thing, is it? And he said, no, lying's not a good thing. But you see, if you're going to stop lying, then it means you've got to start living the truth. I got to start being who I really am and who I'm really not. And now, to make matters worse, I'm married. I used to be able to go back to my bachelor pad and turn out the lights and pull down the shades and pretend that I'm not here. But now I'm married. I can't hide. I'm seen. And I remember one time in my quiet time saying to the Lord, I don't know how to do this. I was never taught this. I'm scared spitless. I don't really know what to do. And you know what God said to me? And I think he would say this to you this morning. He said, Mark, start where you're at. And I kind of went, I don't know if I get that, God. No, I'm okay. I'm okay to start where you are. When I heard that, shame broke. I felt like I'm 25 years old. Why can't I do this? Come on, Spencer. But some of these hard things of really risking being known, you just can't jump through. You need God's help. So I said, well, what are we going to do, God? And he said, here's what I want you to do. I want you every day to risk saying hello to someone that you don't know. Okay, I think I can do that. So I go down to Red Owl, to the grocery store, and I go through the line, and I start thinking, this is the person I'm going to say hello to. I don't know her. It's a grocery store. I can grab my groceries and run like a bandit. And as I'm getting there, I start to perspire like I'm running a 10K. I'm sweating bullets. And she looks up from ringing all this stuff through. She looks up at me, and I try to say hello, and it sounds like this. Like someone stuck a jar of peanut butter in my mouth. And she looked at me, and I just grabbed my groceries, and I went out to the car, put my groceries in the car, closed the door, and I cried. I cried. Just being honest with you. I cried. I said, God, I am so terrible at this. There's no hope for me. Shame comes back. See that? No hope for you. God speaks really clearly to me. I mean, I just felt like God got in the passenger side of the car, and he said, attaboy, you did it. God, I didn't do it. It went, bleh. I don't even know what that is. Keep going. Keep going. Start where you're at. I'm okay with that. And each day, it took faith, trust. Here I go. But the bleh turned into a hello, into a good morning, into a how are you, into my name's Mark. What's your name? Step by step, jump by jump, but boy, did I need God. And so do you. You may be down the street from where Spencer is. More power to you. But the deeper connection you crave, the deeper connection I crave, is going to require me to take a jump with God. You guys, we've got a great opportunity in this world right now. There is an incredibly lonely, despairing world. And your hello, how are you, could be a massive difference maker, but it will be a jump. Will you pray with me? Lord, thank you. You took the first jump. You jumped right into the middle of our mess. Not ashamed of us, you owned us, you called us, you chose us, you picked us. So it's no surprise when I think about it. Yep, and now you're sending us. We won't be able to do it, Lord, apart from you. Help us. I pray wherever each of us are at right now relationally, that, Lord, you would help us to start where we're at. But start with you to your glory. I pray this morning that as we come to the table, that we would come to the table realizing you called us up from underneath the porch to sit at your table. We have a place at the table with our name. No one else can take it. It's ours. It's secure forever. And so we thank you that on that night, you had blinders on and you said, I am doing this to save these. That you gave your body. That's represented in this bread. You poured out your blood that's represented in the juice to remind us every time that we take it, we're yours. And so we say, thank you, Lord. And we ask as we come to the table, draw us on, encourage our faith, and help us to jump to the next relationship, the next place that you're calling us to. In Jesus' name, amen.